Senator Veronica, you give notice to your motion, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that aware that foreign workers from developing countries make up a large majority of the Gulf's labor, a trend driven in Kenya by high rate of youth unemployment, which stands at 34.21%, forcing young Kenyans to continue to go beyond our borders in pursuit of lucrative employment opportunities. Further aware that the kafala or sponsorship system found in the Gulf Cooperation Council GCC countries such as Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, and Lebanon defines the relationship between foreign workers and their local sponsors, under which the state gives local individuals or companies sponsorship permits to employ foreign laborers and covers travel expenses and provides housing in the case of domestic workers in the sponsor's home. Appreciating that the Kenyan recruitment process of domestic workers for Saudi Arabia involves a number of stakeholders, including the Saudi employers, the Saudi Arabia employment agencies, Ministry of Labor, National Employment Authority, National Industrial Training Authority, prospective domestic workers, Kenya private employment agencies, Saudi Arabian Embassy and the Immigration Department, noting that numerous Kenyan migrant domestic workers in Saudi Arabia have documented various forms of abuses, including passport confiscation, physical abuse, sexual abuse, sleep deprivation, food deprivation, labor exploitation, imprisonment prior to deportation, religious intolerance, and psychological abuse, leading to some of these workers losing their lives. Cognizant that Articles 10, 11, and 14 of the International Convention on the Protection of the Rights of all Migrant Workers and members of their families, adopted on 18th December 1990, espouses that no migrant worker shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, shall be held in slavery or servitude, or be subjected to arbitrary or unlawful interference with his or her privacy, family, correspondence, or other communications, or to lawful attacks on his or her honor and reputation, and the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. Further appreciating that staffing shortages and inadequate funding faced by the labor attaches in Saudi Arabia hinder the effective supervision of migrant workers in distress, lack of safe houses, lack of a comprehensive mechanism to handle labor disputes, and a lack of legal framework defining the roles of migrant workers in order to adhere to the terms of their contract are some of the challenges that we need to overcome. Concerned that under the bilateral labor agreement between the government of Kenya and the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on the recruitment of domestic workers that was developed and adopted in January 2016, Kenya was obligated to provide qualified and medically fit workers needed by Saudi Arabia according to the job specifications, and in turn, Saudi Arabia was obligated to ensure that the welfare and rights of employers and domestic workers employed in the kingdom are promoted and protected in accordance with the applicable rules and regulations, which has not been the case including the enforcement of rest hours and the identity and work permits remaining in the possession of the migrant worker. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves that the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, Labor and Social Protection, Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs, Immigration Department, the Employment Authority, the National Industrial Training Authority, and the Kenya Private Employment Agencies cease all travel by Kenyan migrant workers to the Gulf states with immediate effect until, 1, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection amends the National Labor Migration Regulatory Framework Policy to address labor exploitation management. 2, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection and Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs adopts, ratifies the multilateral declaration to the protection of workers, such as the International Labour Organization, Domestic Workers Convention 2011, number 189, and the Private Employment Agency Convention. 3, the establishment of functional overseas labor offices for the administration and enforcement of the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection policies for migrant workers. 4, a review of the bilateral agreement between the Government of Kenya and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs to adequately address identified gaps and emerging issues. 5, that they are established safe houses to serve as central hearts of welfare and assistance to migrant workers and temporary shelters for overseas Kenyans in distress. And number 6, that any Kenyan in distress, and in particular, Helen Kemuto, be rescued and brought back to Kenya from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Mr. Speaker, sir, this motion is informed by the fact that there are many Kenyans.
Honorable Senator, if you're giving notice, you simply read the motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator James Lominen, next order.
Order number